They got 40 billion good reasons to want you out of the way. You gotta go on the record. Swing the spotlight back on them. You gotta protect yourself, man.
You go out there and find me evidence linking Sonia's death to Point Core. I will go on the record. I will shout this thing from the rooftops.
I can do that. I think journalism has been affected greatly by that preparedness to not have any ethical standards, to not have any morals, you know, and there is a massive ambiguity, a moral ambiguity in all journalism, and you know it's a very cynical thing too, man, because you know most of the time when you're reading a newspaper, you know that the guy who edits that newspaper, you know that he knows that this particular story isn't true, but he needed something to fill up page 7, you know, and it was just enough words to fit next to the women's lingerie ad, so he's going to run with it, you know, and I think if there's a crisis in journalism at the moment, it's been made by journalists. So I don't think that there's any place that journalists can go to complain about it because they've constructed the crisis of untruth by themselves.
You're just seeking the truth, that's all. You're a truth seeker. That's all. You can't help it, so you are. You're such a hypocrite. You're not interested in me. Me coming here was all about you and getting your story. I trusted you. You're my friend. You were supposed to be my friend when you were my wife. You're my friend, Cal. I never would have done this to you. I wanted to build a character where I could really justify every step of the decision that he took from the point of view of he thought he was making the right choice from a set of principles that were honorable and still have him end up somewhere that was not great. Because I liked about this story the fact that it was morally complex. It gave me, you know, an affinity, a sense of empathy for, you know, all the people who wind up in a place different from where they imagined they would, for how they would behave in a given situation, or the fact that I believe that people who, you know, we click on a web, the CNN or whatever.com, you open up and you see some person in some scandal, and you know that person is going like, this isn't me. You know what I mean? How did I get here? I'm not the guy that's in this scandal position. And that to really understand what that evolution kind of looks like. And I also think for journalists, you know, I think one of the things I learned was the ambition in journalism. I never appreciated that. All my conversations with journalists had always been one way. I had never understood the ambition inside a newsroom or a magazine or a website. I never understood competing journalists who had to jockey for things, or that the larger sense of having to jockey to sell papers or get clicks on websites, and that this urge to compete and jockey and drive was creating this ambition, and the ambition of each individual inside, you know, that was like this swirling dynamic that was at play. And so when those tendrils kind of reached out and touched these stories, they were kind of radioactive with that ambition, and it means that it sort of affected the integrity of the stories oftentimes. It was really a good lesson.
I know you got shot at last night, and I know I should be making you a nice cup of cocoa, but I'm just so bloody angry. I mean, the decision, I'm assuming, was that this was not news.
We were worried that we were going to
It was my call, Ken. All right? I didn't, and I don't believe her. She's not credible. She was just trying to sell us her sexy scrapbook photos of her friend Sonia Baker. Her dead friend.
Yeah, well, why the hell couldn't we have printed that? A waitress comes forward with a claim about a sex scandal. Great, that's an A1 story. Then he denies it. There's another story. And then one of them cracks, and there's another story. Meantime, people are reading about it, and they're reading us about it.
I realized that, you know, things are going in a certain direction that is very difficult because there's a lot, you know, it's about making money and it's about sizzle and sexy stories and spin and, you know, and that's a little daunting. And at the same time, you know, I was very enlightened in terms of how hard some people are working at telling the truth and how much harder it's become, and that they're working really hard and putting themselves on the line. And, you know, I met these journalists who spend years on a story and can't reveal their sources and, you know, have to protect people. It's kind of like, you know, the movies. It's quite exciting and dangerous at times. So, yeah, I gained a lot of insight on both sides, I think.
Oh, for God's sake. Don't throw those dewy cub reporter eyes at me. It's nauseating.